you want to have a fight with me over anti-Semitism, any day of the week.
Just when you thought Keir Starmer had it under total control, Nigel Farage exposes a little scandal that could shake the Labour Party to its core. One thing about Farage is that he is never one to miss a chance to stir the pot, especially when it involves someone like Keir Starmer.
Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mauritius has no legal or historical claim to the sovereignty of a group of islands that are 1,300 miles away from where it is. Nor does, from the International Court, it was purely an advisory opinion. There is no legal reason why we have to do any of this. Now, I warned the Foreign Secretary 6 weeks ago in this chamber that it was an enormous mistake to do this, given that we had a US presidential election coming up on November the 5th. And if you say to me, well, yes, it's okay, the United States are fully in favour, really? I can tell you that the incoming National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, has form on this, right back to when the Right Honourable Member for Braintree was doing his best to give away the sovereignty of the Chagos Islands. Indeed, he wrote to Secretary of State Blinken at the time. There is, I can assure you, having been in America last week, knowing also the incoming Defence Secretary very well, there is outright hostility to this deal. Whatever is said about a lease agreement, as we saw with Hong Kong, these agreements can very, very easily be broken. Diego Garcia was described to me by a senior Trump advisor as the most important island on the planet as far as America was concerned. So you're going to find outright hostility. And by the way, when it comes to the Chagossian people, yes, of course, what happened to them was truly awful. They do not wish to live. They're unanimous in this. They do not wish to live under Mauritian rule. They want to live under British rule because they actually trust us. There is no basis for this agreement to continue as it is, and if you do, you'll be at conflict with a country without which we would be defenceless.
Wow. Now just give me a second. Just give me a second. Do you like them? Very expensive. But guess what? I bought them myself. How about that?
And honestly, it's clear he's enjoying every moment of Starmer's awkward predicament. But inasmuch as he is an opposition, you will definitely hear the truth in his words. That's Nigel Farage backing protesting farmers. On the street, many are supporting the idea of him becoming Prime Minister. But that's a different story for another time. For now, let's get to the real issue at hand. Recently, Keir Starmer found himself in hot water after Nigel Farage exposed a controversial secret about his government.
The Chagos Islands being given back to Mauritius. Your reaction?
Crazy. I mean, I urge viewers of GB News to get out your maps, get out your atlases, check out the Chagos Islands, see where they are, see where Mauritius is. A long way away.
Yes.
What is this claim? It's nonsense. It's total nonsense. Why are we doing this? Sheer political correctness, desire to look like the good guys, a desire to look as though we're unbundling the last relics of our empire. It's nonsense. It's a bad idea in hard geopolitical terms because the base in Diego Garcia, as I'm sure you know, or for all our viewers know, is of huge strategic importance for the US, for the West, and it's a key component of the Anglo-American alliance. It's one of the things we bring to the table, has been for decades. That base, why are we trading away our sovereignty over Chagos? Completely the wrong thing to do.
Farage revealed that Starmer and Foreign Minister David Lammy secretly handed control of the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, doing precisely what the Republicans warned them not to do. This move, he argues, could jeopardise UK-US relations. I can't help but wonder what the long-term consequences might be.
This is not just about tax. It's about solar farms, it's about bonkers net zero policy, it's about rewilding, it's about everything that's been done over the last few years. And it feels to these people that the urban elite doesn't give a damn who they are, doesn't like them either, thinks they're too white and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely think that if this carries on as it is, the smallholders survive, the giant agribusinesses survive, and all these people get wiped out. It's important.
Well, as world leaders and politicians watch the US election results roll in overnight, there was one British MP who had a ringside seat. Reform leader Nigel Farage was at Trump's Mar-a-Lago watch party, and he joins me now from Florida. Good evening, Mr. Farage. Did you get any sleep last night?
Good evening. Very, very little, but there was a lot to celebrate. It is the most extraordinary political comeback, not just in American history. I can't think of any parallel, and it says a lot about the sheer resilience of the man. Whether you like him or not, he is an extraordinary human being.
Have you spoken to him today? If so, what did he say?
I spoke to him last night. I spoke to him briefly last night, and I mean, the whole thing was extraordinary. I mean, there were, people in the ballroom at Mar-a-Lago whooping it up, and Donald Trump was just cool as a cucumber.
To understand why the Chagos Islands matter, you need to know about Diego Garcia. This military base is crucial to the UK and US defence strategy. Farage argues that removing British control is a risky mistake, especially with Mauritius now having ties to China. He warns this move could leave the UK vulnerable, weaken US interests, although the ruling party may have fired back, but the popular view still holds that most of Starmer's foreign policy moves appear reckless and misguided, stirring up political tension. Honestly, it's not looking great for him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Has the time not come, Prime Minister, to prescribe what is so obviously a terrorist organisation, and in doing so, not just do the right thing, but maybe mend some fences between this government and the incoming presidency of Donald Trump's, given that the whole of his cabinet have been so rude about him over the last few years?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see the honourable member making a rare appearance back here in Britain. He spent so much time in America recently. I was half expecting to see him on the immigration statistics when we see the next batch. But he may have missed. I did congratulate the incoming president last week.
However, as President-elect Donald Trump takes office, the UK's relationship with the United States is coming into sharper focus. And with Nigel Farage in the picture, it seems like a pain in the head for Keir Starmer. Right now, all I can see is growing pressure on the Prime Minister to bring Nigel Farage into the fold to help strengthen UK-US ties and achieve big successes on that front.
You have a man from Europe, I don't know if he's here, I saw him backstage. What he did was, and what he is doing is sort of what we did a few years ago. He's doing a great job. He's he's always been my friend for some reason. He liked me, I liked him. And he's shaking it up pretty good over there. He was the big winner of the last election in the UK, and he's a very spectacular man, very highly respected, Nigel Farage. He's a little bit of a rebel.
Yeah, rebel, that's the word. Funny, isn't it? You see, Nigel Farage and Donald Trump have had a close political bond from way back, but to the entire public, it was as far as 2016. Back then, Farage, the leader of UKIP, was one of the few British politicians to support Trump's presidential campaign. He even spoke at a rally, highlighting their shared populist views. Here's something else Trump said during a public rally back in 2016.
Oh, I'm non-controversial and shy compared to you. I got to say, 4 years ago, I was honoured to come to America to bring the Brexit message, the message that you can beat the establishment. And that is what Donald Trump did. He beat the pollsters, he beat the media, he beat all the predictions. And here's the worst bit, they've never forgiven him for it.
This is what Trump said. After Trump won, Farage was the first British politician to visit him. Over the years, Farage has kept backing Trump, attending rallies and praising his policies. As of November 2024, with Trump back in the White House, Farage is still eager to position himself as the UK's link to Trump's administration. However, Downing Street doesn't seem too keen on the idea. When you think about it, could the White House actually pressure the Conservatives to appoint Nigel Farage as the US ambassador? I mean, it's an interesting thought, especially when you consider the political connections at play. But would they really go that far?
I think that Nigel Farage is a lot closer to Donald Trump in his own mind than he is in reality.
I don't think that's the case. I think, I don't think that the president of the US would call out Nigel Farage personally to sort of laud him and praise him at the recent rally just before the election. And I think that Nigel Farage, I think he genuinely wants to see the best for Britain. And I think...
well, if that was true, he would do it anyway. And if that was true, he wouldn't have encouraged us to vote for Brexit, which was a national act of self-harm. And if that was true, he wouldn't be trying to destroy the NHS. He wouldn't be encouraging us to have a private healthcare system. Like, there are so many things which, in my opinion, make Nigel Farage the opposite of a patriot. And the idea that we owe him anything because he spent more of his time sucking up to Donald Trump than he has servicing his constituents in Clacton actually makes me feel quite sick.
Let's be honest, mate_House members can be as stubborn as they come. It would be very surprising to see the ruling party align with the growing narrative of making Farage the US ambassador. We all know the game. These guys will sugarcoat their positions while keeping their own agendas firmly intact, often in a way that feels painfully hypocritical. But such is the dance of politics, isn't it? Speaking of Nigel Farage's role as a go-between for Donald Trump and Elon Musk, take a look at what he had to say.
So I think we're beginning to build a bit of a bigger team.
Yeah.
Do I want it to be bigger still? You bet your life I do.
Yeah.
Am I working on that? Absolutely.
Yeah. Can I ask you, I want to carry on talking about America a little bit. So did you spend time with Musk? Did you meet him?
I did.
And how was that interaction?
I did.
Because he's always talking about England. Like on Rogan, he's tweeting constantly about the free speech issues.
Introduced to him by the big guy, who was astonished that I didn't know him. I said, you don't know Elon? I did meet him. Interesting. I've met some of these big fellas in the past that have set up tech platforms and are multi-billionaires, and very often they're a bit odd. They kind of have to be to do what they've done. Musk was remarkably normal.
Really?
Yeah. Remarkably normal, affable, personable, amusing, opinionated but passionate. And I asked him, why is it that you seem to have this extraordinary interest in our little group of islands?
Yeah.
On the other side, I didn't quite put it like that, but you know what I mean. And yeah, it was like there's an emotional attachment.
That was his response.
Well, he didn't use the word emotional, but the words that he used were emotional. In that he said, well, you are the mother country of the entirety of the English-speaking world. It really matters. Not what I expected.
Huh. Wow, that's
not what I expected. And the level of knowledge he had, unbelievable, on everything. Farmers, what was proposed in the budget, capital gains, more broadly, Southport, what really happened.
Yeah.
And why have you got the blame, Nigel? And all. I mean, no, his level of knowledge was incredible. And he's clearly got one of the quickest brains that's ever been built. I mean, it just is amazing. He's on that and he's following everything. So they're really pleased to meet him. And I think those of us in the Western world that believe in nation state, that believe in democracy, that believe in controlled borders, that believe in protecting our cultures, I think this man's emerged as a hero figure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I genuinely do.
However, it's quite surprising to see growing calls for Keir Starmer to engage with Nigel Farage to strengthen UK-US relations. Even Lord Peter Mandelson has stepped in, urging Prime Minister Starmer to end his feud with billionaire Elon Musk and tap into Musk's expertise. Mandelson didn't stop there. He also suggested that Farage might play a role in repairing the UK's fractured relationship with the US President-elect Donald Trump.
The only job in America that would really tempt me would be with a Starmer, it's probably not going to happen, but with a Starmer administration that has no connections to Trump who's going to win, they need somebody in the middle of that in Washington to help them.
You want to be Starmer's ambassador to the US?
They're going to need someone.
Well, you're putting that out there. Let's see if Labour gets in touch.
If it's not me, who's it going to be? Because whatever David Lammy thinks of Donald Trump or says about him, or Sadiq Khan or whatever it may be, the fact is, we are still the biggest investor in the USA from overseas. They're our biggest investor here. The trade links are huge, but could be so much better. And NATO is a very, very important organisation. And if Britain and America aren't together, the thing may fall to pieces. So the stakes on that are very, very high. Am I going to emigrate to America? No, I'm not. I'm not. Tempting though it is, I'm not. If I was asked to do a job that might help the national interest, I would. I doubt Labour will ask me. I very much doubt they'll ask me. Their prejudice against me would be too great. But you know what? It might just be the right thing for the country.
And Nigel Farage, as ever, has been seizing on Trump's rise to fuel the idea that Trump is livid over what he sees as Labour's betrayal. To be honest, he is right. Yet, it's a smart move, aimed at rallying Conservative voters and creating urgency around the issue. When you think about it, it's just clever politics at work. And honestly, I can't help but wonder how Starmer plans to navigate all this. It's one thing to deal with Trump as the new Republican president, but working with Farage, a political opponent, for the sake of diplomacy? That's another one entirely.
But seriously, though, you do sound like you're pitching to be the man to, just be emollient in the relationship, a special relationship. Is that what you're going for? And I'm wondering, if that is the case, what do your constituents in Clapton make of that?
No, let's be absolutely clear. I made a decision a few months ago that I would stand for the Westminster Parliament. I've become an MP, and I'm very fortunate to be an MP for Clacton, and I will represent that constituency and do my best for it. That is not going to change. There is no way the Labour government would ever make me the British ambassador in Washington. That was never going to happen. But, there are ways in which I think I could help smooth the relationship between Trump, the people he's going to appoint into senior roles in the administration, most of whom I also know. If I could be helpful as a bridge between the two, I would do it. And it's not because I agree with anything the Labour government stands for. I do it because it's in our national interest.
And if that doesn't happen, if the relationship is not mended, as you describe, do you think we have real reason to fear in this country from President Donald Trump, number 47?
We have real reason to fear that the world is a more dangerous place right now than it's been at any point in my lifetime. Ukraine, the Middle East, the South China Sea, there are so many things happening, and we need the American president to take over the leadership of the free world and to say to these dictators, look, there's someone here now that you need to respect. With Biden, they simply ignored him and walked all over him.
Farage's rise might ruffle feathers, but for Starmer and his crew, it's a full-blown storm. The stakes are sky high, and this isn't the kind of mess you can smooth over with a few sound bites or a polished press release. Farage has put his cards on the table, and Starmer's government is scrambling to even keep up, let alone play the game. Let's be real here. Navigating this situation is like walking a tightrope over a bonfire. One misstep and everything crashes, taking whatever's left of Labour's credibility with it. It's crunch time for Starmer and his team. Either they figure this out or brace for the fallout. And trust me, the fallout won't just singe their egos, it could scorch the whole country's future.